You really notice true beauty when it's like rainy and misty and everything, and the place just feels absolutely magical. And that's what happened with Conques. It's just, yeah, it's like this, yeah, place out of a fairy tale.
Welcome back to Artfully Crafted. My name is Alienor, and each week I travel to a craftsperson's studio, interview them, and show you their work. This week is a little bit different. One of the things that's become really obvious to me as this channel has developed, and even before then, is that the way that we learn to draw has completely shifted. It's not unusual now in the fields of architecture, interior design, and crafts for people to go straight to 3D drawing on a computer. However, I think there's a lot that is lost when one doesn't develop their draftsmanship skills with hand drawing. I think there's a lot of muscle memory that would get developed. I think there's also better understanding of architectural forms and just generally a lot of intuition when it comes to proportions that one just doesn't develop if it goes straight to a computer. So I'm challenging myself. I am going to a course in France, in Conques, a course organized by La Table Ronde de l'Architecture, an organization that promotes vernacular architecture, traditional building methods, crafts, and hand drawing. So let's see how I get on. Wish me luck. It's the last day of August and we started the course a couple days ago, so I'll just rewind to what we've been up to. I have to set the scene. We're in Conques, in the south of France, and it's a very, very remote hilltop village. There's about 80 people living here full-time. The village started as an abbey church, and so you have brothers who live here and who are kind of the heart of the community, and the community has kind of grown from there. There's obviously a lot of pilgrims on their way to Compostelle coming through every day, and that's been going on for centuries. The village is built around this sort of pilgrim kind of community and flow. So it's a really unique atmosphere, but it also means it's quite a tricky place to get to. We're actually staying in a massive house, which is it's basically a place that pilgrim groups can rent, and so we have accommodation upstairs. I'm filming in one of the classrooms right now, so if you hear any background noise, I've got a couple of people who are also on the course who are in here with me. Typical late night drawing on these types of courses, and then downstairs there's a dining area and garden, and the dining area was sharing with pilgrims who are coming through as well. We kind of spent part of the day sort of kind of finding our bearing. We then had a lecture with Noé and Nadia explaining the philosophy of the school, the principles of the school, this idea that yes, we are in Conques, and the idea is to understand the vernacular architecture and ornamental style of the region, but really we're learning an approach to design, this idea that wherever you are in the world, the first thing that you want to do if you're designing architecture is really getting to know the area. It's what materials are available nearby, what is it in its design DNA already that you can build up on and add to. I think Nadia and Noé have done a great job of putting a really varied group together, the different mindsets and education backgrounds. After we did that, we had a lovely walk around Conques, which takes surprisingly longer than you'd think for an 80-person village, because it's lots of windy little tracks up and down the hilltop, cobblestone, etc. And obviously we were looking up and commenting on the various bits of architecture and construction, of getting to know the style a little bit. A really lovely walk to get us used to our surroundings. And then that really led us to the evening. There's a really lovely thing in Conques that we've discovered that happens every single night from April to October. We have a concert in the Abbey Church, and pretty much every night it's different musicians performing. It's really just, again, adding to this very special atmosphere in the village. I guess impressions about Conques, it's really unlike any place I've ever visited, really. Actually, before I came here, I went to Carcassonne, and I was hoping for this like charming medieval village with sort of artist workshops, etc. And I was hoping for a really magical atmosphere, and it was super touristy. And then I arrived here, and I was like, oh my God, this is the kind of perfect little village I was dreaming about and hoping to find. There's about maybe, I don't know, like 15 or so different craftspeople and artists, like stained glass, stone carver, jewelry makers, silversmith. There's an artist who specializes in illuminated manuscripts, which I'll get into a bit later. So it's really just, an incredible array of medieval arts that are represented, and really living and breathing these traditional art forms in Conques. Rather lengthy description of day one, but I hope it kind of sets the scene. Day two, we had the privilege to have a tour of the Abbey Church with one of the brothers, so Frère Godefroy, who gave us a visit of the Romanesque Abbey Church and gave us the explanation of the tympanum that's above the entrance of the church, which was really wonderful, and again gave us some context to think about over the coming days. And then we took a hike in the surrounding countryside, because a lot of what we're going to be doing over the next few days is composing drawings based on not just the vernacular architecture but nature around us. On our walk we were foraging, so I actually have like lots of little bits of leaves and things like that, and bits of flowers, and we took loads of photos, and we were stopping to sketch, and it makes it sound like it was a really poetic kind of walk, and it was. It was also like very much as a steep sort of terrain around here, so we had a bit of rain, so we were trying to make sure we weren't slipping on all the rocks and stuff like that. But a really, really great hike, and we definitely felt inspired by what we saw. And then afterwards, basically, we're going to have, alongside doing all of our measured drawings and perspective drawings and everything else, we are having the opportunity to try some crafts ourselves. So some of us will be doing a short course in Illuminated Manuscript. So the local Illuminated Manuscript artist, so her name is Valérie Duclos, she's going to be teaching some of us for 2 evenings. And then Nadia is going to be leading the students who are going to be focusing on clay tiles. We're doing our own design, and we are doing this 13 by 5 centimeters, so it is smaller, but we only have 2 evenings, about 5 hours of time. So I'm feeling a little bit anxious about it, because I know just how long it takes to do illuminated manuscripts, to kind of do it justice and really get all the details in and stuff. What we were encouraged to do on day 2 was to start designing for those of us who are going to be doing that. So I'm in that group. So I've been pulling together all the bits of inspiration from the walk and surrounding countryside, and also architectural elements and stuff like that. Day 3, which is today, we started the day with a real marathon of a lecture on Christian architecture. We had so much to cover, and we're basically, because we're focusing a little bit on Romanesque architecture. So Romanesque architecture is interesting because it's that connection from the ancient kind of Roman architecture and then the transition into Gothic. But Noé, who is the design historian in the group, did a fantastic job. He really broke down for us the different structures of churches in different points in time, and then explaining the construction method and how that evolves alongside the materials over time, and as uses change as well. So that was really interesting, and again kind of gives us the groundwork to understand Conques in its context. And then this afternoon, another bit of Gothic geometry, or just geometry at large, because of course it doesn't, the roots of Gothic geometry are in Romanesque geometry. But yeah, so much like we did in Bruges, we did an afternoon of geometry, which was definitely much needed. I already felt a bit rusty even just a few weeks after Bruges, so it was a much needed refresher, and I think we all learnt a lot. And then this evening again, some of us stayed behind to finish our Illuminated Manuscript design. We're doing it on tracing paper now, so yesterday we kind of finished the composition. So Valérie actually came to check our designs today to make sure they were going to be manageable in the time we have, and so then this evening we were tracing it to prepare it for transfer onto parchment. So day 4, we had a visit of the the area surrounding the Abbey Church, led by Noé, and also going towards the cloister. And then we actually went inside the Abbey Church, and we were doing complete mind blank. Measured drawing, that's it. So we were each basically assigned, all the columns are different, and so we were assigned, each of us, a different column base. We were put in pairs to measure them because they are quite large. So we spent basically most of the morning, I guess, sketching inside the Abbey Church. We then took our lunch break when they had mass, and then returned and actually finished those. But I was doing a drawing that was 1 to 20. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I'm just comparing to the Bruges summer school, which ended a couple of weeks ago. Feels like I made real progress. Bearing in mind, I do say this with, I'm not saying I'm the best draftsperson, far from it. Pretty much everyone here has incredible draftsmanship skills, and some people it's just a whole other level. So I know I'm not there, but just for myself, I can see a real progression, and so it was really nice. For the first time, I actually finished the drawing in the time that was allocated. I wasn't one of the people who was trying to find some time later to finish it. I just had to tidy up my page, which was such a nice feeling. And then I only kind of made one mistake, I think, which I kind of spotted right away and was able to correct myself. And then all of a sudden things slotted into place, and all the geometry was just really spot on, I guess, which so it's really, really nice to see that progression. What was really cool is after that we went up to the tribune. It was a tour led by Marion, who is she lives locally. I think she lives in the village, and she's the official guide. So what's really special about the Abbey Church of Conques is the height. Really, something that's very surprising is because it's all built on a hillside, they had very little space on the floor plan to build, and so really they just built up. But it's a Romanesque church, so it has that very kind of specific architecture of the rounded arches. This is not Gothic, you don't get the pointed arches in here. It's the rounded arches, the central barrow vault, and then with all the side aisles that are supporting the weight. All the weight is coming down onto really large columns. The Romanesque period sees really, really deep walls because so much weight is coming down from the roof and being dissipated into the sides, as opposed to in the Gothic period, when you have the pointed arches, it distributes the weight in a very different way. But basically it means that the walls are play a very big role in the Romanesque period in the way that they don't so much in the Gothic style. So it's just the architecture of this church is just a beautiful example of it. It has, I think it's 104 windows by Soulage. So it's a very like specific type of stained glass. I've never seen anything like it anywhere else. It's creamy white. It's not see-through. And it's a very, I'd be tempted to say geometric, but it's more kind of like a wavy, kind of gentle pattern. Basically, it's all kind of to bring in as much light as possible to make sure that the church isn't dark, but also like spiritually, it's this idea that you're being enlightened, but then you're also not seeing into the outside, and therefore you're not being distracted. The concepts behind the stained glass windows is quite interesting. It's a bit of a kind of Marmite situation because they used to have really colourful windows, more traditional stained glass that people would expect from a church. So some people are really disappointed that it's not that. But then equally, we were speaking with Frère Godefroy, and he was saying that the people who knew the church before when it had the old stained glass say that it used to be very, very dark. So whether you like the stained glass or not, at least that aspect is a positive change. Yeah, it was really, really cool to see all the different capitals like really up close. There's so many different styles. All of these capitals are very different. Some of them have little people carved into the stone capitals. Some of them are a lot more foliate, and some of them are very Grecian. Some of them almost look kind of neo-Egyptian or something. It's they all kind of have their own personality, which is fun. So we went to the Illuminated Manuscript workshop of Valérie Duclos, who graduated from the Angers School of Illuminated Manuscripts before it closed in 2024. She set up her business in Conques after she graduated and is a full-time illuminator, which is really cool. I think people who study illuminated manuscripts or who are practicing it, they tend to understandably struggle to make a living from it, just because I think potential buyers don't realize just how difficult it is to create an illuminated manuscript. They also don't realize the costs involved of the actual materials as well as the time, of course. It's really an incredible art form. So basically, Valérie was explaining to us, before the printing press was invented, monks were really the ones creating like all the books, and they were actually having to write them by hand, and then they were decorating them. So that's like really the origin of illuminated manuscripts. In the Gothic period, that was the first time that illuminated manuscripts were not made by people in the religious orders. You see the birth of secular illuminated manuscript workshops where you have entire teams working on them, and you have people who aren't, their profession isn't first and foremost being someone in the religious order, but first and foremost they're artists, and that's really what they're specializing in. So they will push the medium of illuminated manuscripts to new heights in terms of, you start to see, instead of flat drawings with flat motifs, etc., you really see the start of really essentially like tiny little drawings with perspectives and landscapes, etc., and that's quite a big change in the evolution of illuminated manuscripts. The reason why they'd be working in miniatures is because they were illustrating books, right? But then you keep that scale even when it's not necessarily illustrating books anymore. It was really great to see Valérie's workshop. She showed us the manuscript that was her like graduation project. So it took her 2 years to do 32 pages. I think that actually gives you a lot of context into the time involved. So she has that in her shop. So if you ever visit Conques and you get to go to Valérie's gallery / workshop, it's there. You can't take photos, which I totally understand why. Anyway, so that was really cool. And then we actually went and we had 2 hours with her to get started. We transferred our drawings onto the vellum, and she explains the basics. And it was really interesting seeing everybody else having that aha moment of, oh wow, like this is actually going to take a long time. A really great 2 hours. And then we were sort of really motivated to then, we're going to need to keep going and work into the night if we actually want to finish this, because we had a limited amount of time with Valérie, so we were going to have to put a lot of time in by ourselves. After dinner, we had a lecture with William Pesson from Arcas. It's an architecture firm in Paris and Belgium, and they work on urban planning projects, new builds, and then also restoration. And he very kindly did a presentation for us of some of his favorite projects that he's been able to work on. So it was really great to get an insight into what his career has been like and some of his favorite projects. I think you can tell that day was really a highlight for me. It was really cool. Okay, day 5. Oh my god, yesterday was a biggie. So we went back to the cloister, but this time we once again did a measured drawing, but this time of the capitals, not the column base. Each choosing a different one, and instead of 1:20 scale, I was given 1:1, and then we had pretty much the whole day to work on it, which was really cool. And yeah, I really felt myself kind of like being stretched. So we started off like creating a grid, taking basically all the measurements, and you draw like two perpendicular lines that are going to be your 0 point, and then you're like adding kind of like an XY axis, and then you're adding all of your measurements, like building up, so that then you can build up your grid, and you will have taken measurements at like key elements of your capital, so that then when you've got your grid in place, you can see exactly where all the kind of different volume and shape is meant to go. It was a great thing to start, and then the whole idea with this was measured drawing but then doing shading, and yeah, just a really productive day. And then came back, and I mean, I forgot to mention, whilst a bunch of us are working on the Illuminated Manuscripts, there's the other half, of course, are doing clay tiles downstairs with Nadia, and again, they're all kind of using naturalistic sort of ornamentation, and yeah, I'm excited to see what they come up with. So we had 3 hours of workshop time with Valérie, and she very kindly, she was meant to kind of take all her materials back. I don't think she knew just how like motivated we were going to be to finish, and then I think she saw the sort of desire to finish our artwork like kind of take over us, and so then she realized, no, like these people they're gonna stay up to finish this artwork. So she very kindly left her paint with us so that we could work late, and I think some of us, we had a quick dinner and then came back, and we were working until midnight, 1 a.m. When you think about it, it's nuts. It's 13 by 5 centimeters. It's tiny. It's literally the size of a bookmark. And we spent just painting time, I think we all spent about 12 to 15 hours. But yeah, so that was the end of day 5. I guess technically the start of day 6 for some of us. But yeah, and then in the morning after not enough sleep, so then that was today. That's probably why I'm half delirious right now, is lack of sleep. But it was all worth it. Valérie came back in the morning to pick up all her materials, and she got to kind of see and review all of our drawings, and she was very complimentary, and it was just a nice moment. And then William Pesson did another lecture for us, this time about urban planning and the organic city, and it was just, yeah, so he's an architect, but he's also an architectural historian, and yeah, just the amount of knowledge that he has was just really obvious. And it's great to have someone who has the knowledge about the history but also the practice, and who can comment on both as they're going along. So that was really, really nice. And he had so many great illustrations as well to illustrate his points, and yeah, so it was really awesome. William, if you're watching this, thank you very much. It was super. And then in the afternoon we had basically free reign over the whole village to do some sketching, and it was kind of a bit more of a free format of, if someone wants to perspective sketches, they can. If they want to do like elevation, and to be honest, the group of us that did Illuminated Manuscripts, like we kind of needed a bit of a slower day, I think, so we appreciated that.
Hey everybody, I'm back from Conques. If you've watched this channel before, you'll recognise the backdrop as my living room. The last 2-3 days was so wonderful, intense but wonderful. The last time I narrated this, we were heading off to see the Trésor with Frère Godefroy. It was an incredible visit. The thing is, he's so passionate and eloquent that it would have been a joy of a visit anyway. But then what we were seeing was, of course, so special, regardless of religious inclinations. I think just purely as art historical artifacts, just such a testament to centuries of craftsmanship. It was great, I guess, in the sense of a lot of it is just things put together from previous precious objects. So you sometimes have pieces that span 500 years of craftsmanship and filigree and repoussé and precious stones and metals and gold and silver and la 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 la. All of it absolutely beautiful and just inspiring, and it's really interesting to see like a mixture of different styles. The next day we had a really rainy day in Conques. I loved that we had a rainy day in the sense that we kind of got to see Conques in under lots of different like weather conditions, and I think that almost like added to the charm of it, because I think so many places, most places kind of look beautiful in good weather, but you really notice true beauty when it's like rainy and misty and everything, and the place just feels absolutely magical. And that's what happened with Conques. It's just, yeah, it's like this, yeah, place out of a fairy tale. Yeah, so to see it under the rain was lovely, but also very much needed, because it meant we could stay indoors in the classroom, no distractions, and just get drawings done. Being surrounded by people who are so passionate, so motivated, and we did have a couple of people who were truly like exceptional draftspeople. Also Nadia, of course, was going around giving advice. One point she was also giving advice on like the right tools as well. I've never used so many pencils for just plain normal pencils, but just using the full like HB, B, the 2Bs, the 4Bs, 6B, etc., like just the full arsenal, and really showing how that impacts the drawing. But certainly I felt like I would get my drawing to a point I was happy with, and then I would see or be told, oh, but have you noticed this? Have you seen this? Have you thought about doing that? And then you kind of notice another layer, so you push yourself, and then there's another layer to be noticed, and then another one, and another one. And then you end up with a drawing where like you've got all the dots from like the inside of a stone, you've got all the vertical chisel lines, you've got the little chips off the corner, you've really got everything in it, and it looks like real stone even though it's just pencil and paper. And so that was really, yeah, incredible to do that. The family who were hosting us, who run Maison de Conques, put on some drinks for us to kind of celebrate the end of the week that we'd spent together, and with some local drinks like ratafia and pastis, which was really fun to try these things. Day 8, last day of a course, which honestly went by so quickly. We again were finishing up drawings and clay tiles and all that kind of thing, but then we also headed out to sketch in Conques. And again, I think Nadia had such a good point about this, is that you want to make the most of your surroundings. It's one thing to take a photo and to then take it home and work from it at home, but when you're in the context, you have more sense of depth, more sense of light, more sense of how things shift throughout the day. So to be able to get these initial impressions on paper, if you need to continue with photo, that's understandable, but to be able to get things in person is really great. So we made the most of that. At that point, some people have finished their drawings for the exhibition, so they were able to start some more measured drawings of maybe doors or windows or things like that. Some people were doing details of roofs. I still had my drawings to finish, so I just did some quick perspective drawings just to kind of capture the feeling of the place. So much of the highlight of the course is the people that are there, and Noah and Nadia is so careful to curate a group of people who will hopefully have varied experiences to share with one another, and so it's a real joy to be able to spend time together, learn from one another. As I think I've mentioned before, so many people are from one country studying in another country, they've travelled around, etc. So you really you just get so much out of those experiences of just exchange, and especially at that point in the week we're all more comfortable with one another, we also can reflect a little bit more on everything that we've learned, what our hopes and dreams are for the future, all that sort of thing. So it was a really nice thing to do. More drawing in the afternoon, surprise, surprise. And then in the evening we had this informal diploma ceremony. And then some of us decided to have an impromptu round table because we are from so many different places to kind of share our local vernacular architecture. And that was really great because, you know, everybody kind of would comment on maybe the district where they live and their city, and maybe a bit about the urban planning, or maybe a little bit about the variety of styles, or how the cultures impacted the architecture and the materials and etc. And then to be able to kind of spot maybe overlaps in different countries, etc. So it was really kind of a nice way to again kind of round things off. And the thing that Noe and Nadia had said to us at the beginning was, yes, we're studying in Conques, but this is more of an approach that you can then take with you anywhere. And I think to then take that step back and be like, well, yes, actually now we are analysing vernacular architecture all over the globe, and we're getting that practice in. It was just really nice to be able to do that in an informal way and see just how much what we've learned is applicable to everywhere. Day 9, we all kind of dispersed at various times, depending on what everyone's onwards travel plans were. Some of us who were traveling later on in the day were able to help Nadia and Noé to set up the exhibition in the Musée Faux. So we did that and had one last lunch together before setting off. Yeah. It was dreamy. It truly was. Exhausting, as you can imagine, because with courses like this, it's so intense. You want to give it your best. You want to give it your all. And it's such a academically, skills-wise, but also humanly kind of intense. So I definitely have a bit of sleep to catch up on. Conques will hopefully be happening again next year. I think that was something that Nadia and Noe reflected on, is as they were posting throughout the week, they were getting lots of DMs from people saying, oh, is it happening again, etc. So they've heard loud and clear the message that there is demand for it. I think from what they're saying, Conques will definitely be happening, and I hope I'll also be able to make it, and so maybe I'll meet you in person next year in Conques.
I can't believe how much I learned in the course of just a few days. I highly recommend the courses organised by La Table Ronde de l'Architecture, and I've linked their website below so that you can look it up for yourself and maybe even apply for one of their upcoming courses. Thank you for watching. It means a lot, especially as at the moment this channel is entirely self-funded. So please spread the word. Like, share and subscribe. See you next week.
It's like the official guide for Conques, as far as I understand. Okay, that wasn't meant to happen.